Stuck on who to start for week 6 of fantasy football? We've got the insights and answers to help you make those crucial decisions. With several injury situations to navigate, including Nico Collins of the Texans, and the Chiefs, Vikings, Dolphins, and the Rams are all on bye this week. Gonna be maybe a tricky week. Let's dive in and guide you to a winning lineup.
Yeah, Lauren, I feel like the whole season's been a bit like that, just dodging, the injury landmines and who's got the healthiest team. And sometimes it's not even your player getting injured, but like Tua getting injured and your quarterback leaving, and then your wide receiver can't perform either. Anyhow, let's get into reviewing these games and who you should be starting or maybe sitting on all of these games. So, our first game is the Washington Commanders at the Baltimore Ravens. I'm super excited about this game. So, the Washington defense has been improving each week. It used to be in the first few weeks, it's like, oh, we'll play whoever's playing against the Washington defense because they're not so good. But now they're kind of stepping it up and they're looking better and better. The Baltimore defense is also giving up plenty of points too. So that makes this a pretty exciting game to start different players. You're definitely going to be wanting to start Lamar Jackson, of course, Derrick Henry, Jaden Daniels, and Terry McLaurin, I believe, this week. I know McLaurin's been kind of hit and miss a little bit on the weeks, but this is a really good matchup for him because they're going to have to throw that ball and keep up with the Ravens. Now it gets a little interesting when we get to running backs because we've got some potential injury plays here. Um, the Commanders running backs, Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler, both are questionable again this week, but both played last week. And I feel better about Eckler playing this week, but I'm only starting Eckler if Robinson doesn't play. So this one's kind of a tricky situation. And it's not really a good matchup. The Ravens will stop you on the run. So I don't like those running backs that well. And I feel like it's only a playable option if one of them's out, and it's still not gonna be my favorite play, and hopefully you've got better plays to make.
Is this a good matchup for any tight ends? I know there's Likely on Baltimore and Ertz on Washington.
Yeah, it's hit and miss on, the Ravens side of tight ends. I played Likely, I think it was last week, and he did well because he got a touchdown, and you're kinda just looking for those random touchdowns that the tight ends might get. We haven't really seen Mark Andrews do a whole lot. But maybe he could do something this week. I don't love either of those. I do, though, on the commander side, like Zach Ertz. So he was targeted, I believe, 8 times last week. He didn't do much with it. He only produced 2 points, but he's still getting a good number of targets. And at least if you're getting to touch the ball, you got a chance of doing something with that ball. So I do like Zach Ertz, and I know the tight ends are really, hit and miss, and we're scrounging for tight ends with all of the injuries. So if you're looking for a tight end, I would recommend Zach Ertz.
Let's chat Detroit at Dallas.
This is another good game. I think we're going in order of how good they are, and we'll get to the ones that aren't that good here in a little bit. So I'm excited also about the Lions at the Cowboys. Detroit had a bye week. They're coming off a rest to get healthy and extra prepared for the Cowboys matchup. The Cowboys had a big comeback win last week against the Steelers, and Dak Prescott is a must start coming off his great game last week with his 2 touchdowns and over 25 fantasy points, I believe. So I love Dak Prescott in this game. Detroit gives up the ball. This one has a definite potential to be a big, big shootout, I feel like. So I like a lot of pieces in this game. Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, they're must starts. And then on the Lions side of the ball, I actually like the running backs better than everyone else. But obviously, you're going to be starting Amon-Ra St. Brown if you drafted him because you drafted him first round and you don't just randomly bench your first round picks usually. So I also like David Montgomery, even though, he's sharing touches with Jamar Gibbs. I feel like in this game, the Cowboys are giving up a lot to the running backs, and both are startable plays if you have either one of them. And then I like all of the wide receivers also on the Lions side, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta. They're all good plays. I think I forgot to mention Jalen Tolbert. So if you picked him up from our waiver wire pickups, I do like Jalen Tolbert as well in this matchup. They're short at wide receiver on the Cowboys side, and they are going to need all the help they can get. Probably elevates Jake Ferguson, their tight end, a little bit as well.
It sounds like this might be a shootout, so you can take pretty much anyone in this game and start them. It should be a good game. Get a lot of
You
fantasy
can.
points.
Yeah, I lean a little bit more on the Detroit side, or I lean a little bit more on the Cowboy side on the passing just because their running game has been struggling. But if you've got Rico Dowell, he's not a bad start this week. He's going to get some points and he's going to get some touches, and he's been showing improvement, and they've been wanting to go to him a little bit more. So again, I all of these pieces are in play if you've got anyone on these teams.
Let's chat Arizona at Green Bay. Kyler Murray got it done last week for fantasy managers, but is he worth a start in this game?
I think he is because I think the Cardinals are going to be behind. And last week against the 49ers, that was an interesting game. They didn't get as far behind as I thought they would, and they ended up winning in the end. And I'm not real sure what's going on with the 49ers. And then we all thought that the Packers were going to have a shootout game with the Rams, but that didn't really play out. I feel like this might be that shootout game, but we're gonna have to see if the Cardinals can hold up their end of the shootout. Jordan Love, Jaden Reed, they're must starts for sure. Dontavian Wicks, I also like him. So if the Cardinals keep this game competitive, then all of the wide receivers are going to be elevated. Tucker Craft, you've got to start Tucker Craft. He might be the top tight end again this week. He is just killing it. And then Trey McBride on the other side. This is where our best fantasy tight ends are coming from is this game. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a bad game last week. We're not even call it down. It was a bad game. It was 5 points. You used probably a second round, maybe a first round pick to get Marvin Harrison Jr. and you're wondering, why can't he be good every week? I feel like this is the week that he gets even for last week and some of the other weeks. I don't have a problem going right back to a good player and playing them again when they come off of a bad week. I did that a week or 2 ago with Kyle Pitts when he had that 0, went right back to him, and he had a great week. So sometimes you just have to keep believing in those good players and go right back to them. James Conner, another good play in this game. Kyler Murray, of course, you're playing Kyler Murray. Josh Jacobs, you're also playing him.
Let's talk Cincinnati at New York Giants. Finally get to play at home after their big win over Seattle. So do you think they're going to carry that energy and we should be starting like Malik Neighbors or Devin Singletary?
I like Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors hasn't practiced yet this week, but he is, coming off that concussion, but I think he plays this week. And so I like Neighbors. Cincinnati is going to be passing again. I like all the Cincinnati players. Burrow's coming off of his 5 touchdown week last week. That was incredible. So I like Joe Burrow, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase. Even T. Higgins is playable this week as well. And then the Giants, like I said, I'm still trying to figure out where that energy came from and if they can continue it here. I don't know that anyone's really ever starting Daniel Jones. So if that's your best quarterback, I'm a little worried. You can probably find somebody else out there, but it's probably not a bad matchup because the Bengals have been giving up a lot. So you could probably start him. On the Bengals side, Zach Moss isn't practicing. He's got a foot injury, which I feel like really elevates the Chase Brown play. When you go down to one running back and you aren't sharing, and they already were favoring Chase Brown a little bit, I really like that play. Although, I mean, we saw that the Giants' defense isn't as bad as we all thought maybe it was.
I also was wondering about Wandale Robinson. I know we said pick him up off the waiver a couple weeks ago. Keeping an eye on Malik Neighbors with that concussion, if he actually does come back or not, would that maybe be a good option as well?
I think so. So I like Wandell Robinson. Even Darius Slayton would be an option too to pick up if Neighbors is out. And then on the Giants running backs, Devin Singletary was limited at practice, and Tyron Tracy had a really good game last week. He is definitely stepping into that role. So They're injuries to keep an eye on, and I feel like you could start them as well if you've got other injuries that you need to fill a hole for.
Let's chat Atlanta at Carolina. Do we trust Kirk Cousins to have a second great game in a row?
Yeah, he had the 4 passing touchdowns last week and over 500 yards. Do we think he can do it again against the Carolina Panthers? I think the question here comes down to, will he have to do it again to beat the Panthers? And I don't think he will. But he'll still have a good game. But then they might lean more on the running game, and the Panthers have been giving up just so much to the run that you have to like Bijan Robinson in this matchup. It's hard to say that, it's probably gonna be Tyler Algier, and I'll be scratching my head again going, "What is wrong with Robinson?" But if he can't get it straight this game, this might be, like, the last game that I have to go to Bijan Robinson. Hopefully, he can make his projected numbers at a minimum. I don't know that the Falcons are gonna need to pass like they did last week to beat the Carolina Panthers. And I like both running backs in this game. I like Chuba Hubbard on the other side and the Carolina ball. They should be going with Andy Dalton again, who has been fine, but I hope you're not having to start Andy Dalton as well. Hopefully, Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback, and if you can land on that side, it's a better play. But still, Chuba Hubbard, I like him going against the Falcons, but the Falcons' defense has been pretty good until last week. Darnell Mooney was questionable as well. He was limited Wednesday with a knee injury, so that's something else to watch on the Falcons side of the ball because he was on our waiver wire pickups, and you may be looking to start Darnell Mooney, and we're gonna have to look for his status. He'll probably make his projections. They're not gonna be super high. He's definitely not the best wide receiver option, but if you're looking to start him, it's a pretty good matchup for him.
I think I saw Kirk Cousins is liking getting back into that passing groove again. And so I could see if Mooney's in, it could be another good game for Mooney.
It could be. I don't both teams are a little beat up. So we've got Darnell Mooney, Xavier Leggett, I believe, left the game last week against the Bears injured. I haven't seen him pop up on the injury report, but it's definitely somebody else that needs to be checked out before you're starting him. This game is a little bit of a surprise to me at a 47 over under because I don't feel like the Falcons are going to have to do that much to beat the Panthers. So we'll see what happens, but hopefully they can at least make their projections. It just won't be the standout, game where you're going to get 30 points and win your matchup from it.
Well, let's move on to Jacksonville at Chicago. Jaguars finally got a win. There are no winless teams this year.
They did, yeah. So that was an exciting game down to the wire, but the Jaguars came out on top. Travis Etienne, the running back for the Jaguars, is questionable with a shoulder injury, and Tank Bigsby looks better anyway. So I'm starting Tank Bigsby in this matchup. I know the Bears have a pretty good defense, but I think Tank Bigsby is just too talented, and I think Etienne might be sitting this one out. He had a shoulder injury entering last week. He got hurt during the game. We saw more Bigsby. And so this week, they might just give him a break anyway. I also like Caleb Williams. Jacksonville gave up 29 points to Joe Flacco last week, but the Bears' defense is better than the Colts' defense. So I don't know if the Jaguars can keep this a competitive game and if the Bears have to score that much. But I still like Caleb Williams because they're going to put up some points. It's still 44 over under. This game is our London game. We've got to get up early at 9:30 again and be ready for football, football for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because we're going to have 12 hours again of football on Sunday. I do really like the Bears defense in this matchup as well.
Glad to hear you say that about Williams because he's my backup quarterback and Darnold is on bye this week. So I will be starting Williams.
Yeah, you give him a start. DeAndre Swift, Rashawn Johnson, they're both kind of questionable starts, but it's one of the better games I feel like as well.
Cleveland at Philadelphia. What do you think? Anyone to start there?
Eh, Probably only on the Eagles side of the ball. There's just not much going right in Cleveland. You're definitely not starting Deshaun Watson, who looks awful. And the Eagles are coming off their bye week. They had extra time to prepare. They shouldn't need to do a whole lot against the Browns. Obviously, you're starting Saquon Barkley. You're going to probably be starting Jalen Hurts, but I don't know that he's going to have to do a whole lot in this game. But Hurts is getting back his wide receivers. So this is like his best week for his wide receivers. He's going to have AJ Brown. He's going to have Devontae Smith. He's also going to have Dallas Goddard. So Goddard has been kind of one of the tight ends that we've been going to, but now with the running backs coming back into play and Cleveland not being able to probably keep this game even remotely exciting, he's probably not going to be our top tight end of the week. You're probably going to play him because who else are you going to play at tight end? We don't have 12 good tight ends to go around to all the different fantasy team managers. So you're going to have to take a chance on Dallas Goddard and hope that he gets a random touchdown. Again, I like the Eagles defense here because the Browns are just crumbling and failing.
Maybe get rid of or start looking on the waiver if you have a bunch of Cleveland players, because it doesn't sound like much good is going to come
Yeah.
there.
I mean, Amari Cooper has been reliable. He's not projected real high, 8 to 10 fantasy points, and he'll probably get those even with just Deshaun Watson in at quarterback. I wish that they would make a quarterback switch and go to Jameis Winston, but that hasn't happened yet. They seem focused on seeing what they have with Watson, which isn't a whole lot.
Let's chat Indianapolis Colts at the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, the Colts wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. is going to be out for this game with a back injury. We'll see how long he is out. There's been some speculation that he is an IR candidate, but at this time, it just looks like he's out for this week. Jonathan Taylor will most likely be out with an ankle injury. He hasn't been practicing. He's got a chance to play, but I wouldn't say that it looks likely. And it's a huge mystery if Anthony Richardson will play or not. I heard good news about his practice on Thursday and that he looked good at practice with his oblique injury, but they might, err on the side of caution and keep him out another week, especially with Flacco getting the job somewhat done for the Colts. If Flacco plays, I like Josh Downs and Alec Pierce, but Downs didn't practice on Thursday either. So they may be down to one of their top 3 wide receivers. Tennessee's coming off of their bye week, and they should be well rested. And you've got to give a start to Tony Pollard. The Colts are giving up so much to running backs, and Tony Pollard's been being used more and more by the Titans. He is a must start for this game, for sure. Tony Pollard. I don't like a lot of the other parts. Like I said, the Colts wide receivers are a maybe with Flacco in there, not with Anthony Richardson, and I'm not real sure what's going to happen if they play Richardson. So on the Tennessee wide receiver side, Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins are an okay start. I view them as risky. This is a good matchup for them because Colts give up points to everybody, but they still have Will Levis for quarterback. If they didn't have Levis, maybe it'd be good, but maybe this is, his 5 touchdown game again, and Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins get to have a great week. You're probably not starting them. Hopefully you have better options, but if not, it is a great matchup for them. So if you're really needing to take a chance and have a big win, they may be a good option.
What about the Colts wide receivers? Should I start or sit them?
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see what happens to Josh Downs and that mystery at quarterback. I think they're risky plays. I don't like them in this matchup. Tennessee's defense hasn't been that bad, and there's just so many injuries on the Colts team. I think I'd find somebody else.
Well, let's chat Tampa Bay at New Orleans, where maybe you could find that someone else. Tampa Bay spent the week in New Orleans avoiding Hurricane Milton, so they should be pretty prepared. It's not much of a time zone or distance change, but
It isn't. So hopefully they're not too worried about their families back home. It was pretty bad in Tampa area last night. New Orleans lost Derek Carr, their quarterback, to an oblique injury after the game last week. And we don't know exactly who's going to be the quarterback right now. I've heard that it's going to be Spencer Rattler, but it could be Jake Hayner. I don't even know how to say his name, but either way, you're not playing either of those quarterbacks, and it makes the entire roster a little suspect for me. Alvin Kamara is popping up as the top running back for the week, which is a little bit surprising to me. And I feel like, when you take out that quarterback, that everyone knows you're gonna run it, and then they key on that and they stop the run. So I'm a little surprised at the whole Kamara situation. The one thing that could change this is if Taysom Hill gets to play. So Taysom Hill, the New Orleans tight end slash quarterback, has been dealing with a broken rib, which is supposedly a pain tolerance. It sounds really dangerous to me, but hey, they call it a pain tolerance. So he has a chance at playing. And if he plays, then it brings in a lot of dynamic plays, and he is a better quarterback than either of these other two. If he plays, this is a whole different game. At this time, he's not supposed to be their quarterback. So Alvin Kamara, you're probably going to have to start him. And the Bucks are giving up a lot of points too. So it is a good matchup. And if they have any sort of passing game, Kamara should have a really good day. On the other side, I love all the parts for Tampa Bay. Bucky Irving, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Those are all must starts to me. And you'll notice that I said Bucky Irving and not Rashad White. I just like Bucky Irving better, and I feel like this is going to be a really good game for him. I know Rashad White's been battling some injuries too. I don't know that Baker Mayfield's going to have to do a whole lot depending on what the New Orleans side can produce. If he does have to do something, then he will have a good game, and he's a fair start as well. He's had a good year. It's definitely not a bad matchup for him.
if New Orleans isn't playing Taysom Hill as their quarterback, is the Tampa Bay defense a good pickup for this weekend to maybe catch some interceptions?
It probably is, yeah, with the 2 unknown quarterbacks and some likely turnovers, it would be a good Bucks start for their defense that hasn't been that good, but maybe this is where they can pop in and get you some points. They may be a good streaming option because 'cause they're probably out there.
Let's talk Buffalo at New York Jets. Jets fired their coach this week.
Yeah, Robert Saleh wasn't getting it done supposedly. I don't know. A lot of times after the coach gets fired, we see relief from the players and they go out and they play really hard, but I don't think it's the players that had a problem with Robert Saleh. I think that the Jets owner had a problem with him and maybe Aaron Rodgers had a problem with him, but to fire your coach after 5 weeks is kind of crazy, and I don't know where the Jets are going with this. I don't expect the Jets to pop up and have a great game because they fired this head coach. And the Jets offense is just a big struggle bus right now. If you drafted Brees Hall or Garrett Wilson, you're wondering, what are you supposed to do? You're going to probably have to start them. And luckily, the Bills' defense isn't that scary. So Brees Hall to me is a must start. You've got to start Garrett Wilson. Alan Lazard seems to be Aaron Rodgers' favorite, and he seems to somehow always end up with a touchdown in these games. So he's a potential starter, even though he's not projected very high. I don't like starting Aaron Rodgers. The Bills are beat up, and the Jets' defense is pretty good. If the Jets win this game, it's going to be their defense. Obviously, you're going to have to play Josh Allen if you have him, but Khalil Shakir is still not practicing, and James Cook is questionable too at running back. they've gotta have James Cook back. I don't know what the Bills are gonna do if they don't have their running back, so hopefully he is healthy enough to play since they're already gonna be down Khalil Shakir. It does elevate Dalton Kincaid, but we keep talking about that, and I think Kincaid had a decent week last week, and if you're looking for, a tight end, definite possibility here, but not great options going against that good Jets defense.
Yeah, I would love to be able to say definitely put Keon Coleman or uh Curtis Samuel in, but this this
Not
game
the
I
week.
don't feel like is the game to risk it on. So
Yeah.
let's move on to Houston at the New England Patriots.
Yeah, the Texans put Nico Collins on IR. It's very sad. I just can't believe all the injuries and all the IRs that we're seeing this season. It's looking like Joe Mixon and Damian Pierce that they may get their running backs back for the Texans. I'd still avoid them that first week back if you can, but if you're desperate, it's not a bad play. Obviously, you're going to be playing CJ Stroud if you drafted him, and Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, I believe, are good plays as well. The Patriots are giving up points to the wide receivers, and they're going to be throwing the ball. They always do. And without Nico there, somebody's going to be picking up some of the slack. I actually like Dalton Schultz, the tight end for the Texans, to step in and pick up some of that slack. So I feel like he's a good tight end play this week. I'm sure somebody has him, but if you've been wondering when do I play him, this is definitely the week to play him. On the Patriots side of the ball, they're going to make a quarterback change, which might make things fun and exciting, and they're going to start Drake May. It'll be interesting to see which game we get. Usually, when we see a new quarterback come in and Drake May is a rookie, when we see them come in, they either have a fantastic week because there's no film on them and no one knows how to play them, or they have a typical rookie week and make a lot of mistakes. Obviously, if you've got the Texans defense, you're going to want to play them and hope for all of the mistakes. And if you're trying to play somebody on the Patriots side, this you should avoid this whole situation. Even Ramondre Stevenson didn't practice on Thursday, and he's questionable for this game. That would elevate Antonio Gibson, but hopefully you've got better choices than Gibson.
Hunter Henry, tight end.
Not my favorite tight end. They're just better teams, and we don't know who Drake May has been working with, has chemistry with, anything.
So if you have Hunter Henry as your tight end, it might be worth taking a peek at the waiver wire, see if there's someone better out there that you could pick up last minute.
Yeah, it's hard on tight end, so you gotta go with what you've got. But yeah,
Well, let's chat Pittsburgh at the Las Vegas Raiders.
uh, yeah, this is a very unexciting game. So, on the Pittsburgh side, Jalen Warren is most likely out again, leaving it all for Najee Harris, who hasn't been great, but maybe this is his game because it's against the Raiders, and Raiders can make teams look really good. I don't know. I go Najee is another one that I play way too often. If you've got him, you should start him. It's a good matchup. He's just one of those that hasn't been very dependable, but he's again in a good matchup. Again, he's not sharing, so you've got to play him. I like Justin Fields again in this game as well, and tight end Pat Fryermuth for the Steelers. They're a little beat up, I feel like, on wide receiver, and I don't know how much they're gonna have to really do to beat the Raiders. The Raiders are also making a quarterback change and going to Aiden O'Connell at quarterback and jumping off the Gardner Minshew train. So we'll see what Aiden O'Connell can do. He doesn't have Devontae Adams either. Devontae Adams isn't playing. He's sitting around waiting for his trade, still dealing with his hamstring injury. I think the only person that is playable on the Raiders side is tight end Brock Bowers, just because he's getting so much of the share and he's had, good games, but he's just being targeted a whole lot. And I would expect that Aiden O'Connell or AOC is going to continue that target share. It could definitely be a good defensive move to take the Steelers here.
With
Play your
how both
Steelers defense.
Yeah, play the Steelers defense. From what we've seen from the Raiders, makes a lot of sense. You'll at least
Yeah,
get to keep the total points they start with.
this is true.
So last game, LA Chargers at Denver. Anyone you like here?
There's not. The Chargers are coming off their bye week. They had a little more time to prepare, and I like both defenses, and that's about all I can say about this game. I don't like any of the other parts. The over under is 35 and a half, and I feel like this could be the 12-9 game. I don't see a lot of scoring in it. The Broncos defense has looked good. Otherwise, I'd like J.K. Dobbins. And I just don't really know what the Chargers are up to. So we'll see if Herbert is a little more healthy than he was. And if the wide receivers can kind of step up and make it a game. But the Broncos defense has been okay. So if you got either of these defenses, I think they're both in play against the rest of these teams. You like anyone here?
I wanted to say I liked parts of the Denver team after kind of seeing them last week and like how excited they were about stuff, but I don't think that I can really say that going against the Chargers this week, so it feels very equal on both sides, which means low fantasy points.
Exactly.
Equal on
Yeah,
the defense side,
I think so.
unfortunately.
I'm not really sure that anyone's gonna be able to do anything here.
Well, that does it for the week 6 games. If you're frustrated with your fantasy league or team so far this season and looking for a shorter term pick me up, come join us over in the daily fantasy space. It's a lot of fun and you can do it. It's a very short, it's a weekend thing. So visit fangirlfootball.com for the contest. If you're new, we have a couple of intro series and walk through how to build lineups for this week over in our week 6 DFS episode. And we'll have a couple of free daily fantasy contests going on. Check the description for links to both of those.